I got the call on a Wednesday afternoon. The recruiter from Riverside Power Systems had been chasing me for 3 weeks, and I finally agreed to hear them out. Senior electrical engineer position at their main generation facility. $220,000 a year, plus overtime that could push it past $270. Full benefits, retirement matching, relocation assistance. The kind of offer you don't ignore. The catch? The plant was in Milford, population 8,000, 2 hours from anywhere you'd call a city. I sat at the kitchen table that evening with the offer letter in front of me. My wife walked in, still in her yoga outfit from the studio downtown. She poured herself wine and glanced at the papers. What's that? Job offer. Senior engineer position at a power plant. She took a sip. Where? Milford. It's upstate, about 4 hours from here. Her face changed instantly. You're not seriously considering that. It's a significant opportunity. The salary alone. I don't care about the salary. She set her wine glass down harder than necessary. I'm not moving to some boring small town in the middle of nowhere. The compensation package is exceptional. We could what? Trade our life here for what? A town with 1 grocery store and a gas station? No restaurants, no culture, nothing to do. I kept my voice level. There's more to Milford than that. And the career growth potential. I have a life here. She gestured vaguely toward the window, toward the city beyond. My friends are here. My yoga studio, my book club meets every Thursday. Karen and I have brunch plans every Sunday. You expect me to give all that up for your boring engineering job? I noticed she didn't mention me in that list. Our marriage. Us. It would be a fresh start, I said carefully. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. A fresh start in a town where the biggest excitement is probably the Friday night high school football game? No thanks. Tell them you're not interested. I looked at the offer letter again. 6 years at my current job, barely breaking $85,000. Long hours, no advancement opportunities. Meanwhile, she spent freely on boutique fitness classes, weekend trips with friends, designer handbags she wore once. I'm going to think about it, I said. Think about what? There's nothing to think about. We're not moving. You're not moving, I corrected quietly. She stared at me. Excuse me. I said you're not moving. I didn't say anything about me. Her expression shifted from surprise to anger. Are you threatening me? I'm considering a job offer that could change our financial situation completely. You've made your position clear. I'm making mine clear too. You're bluffing. You wouldn't actually move without me. I stood up, gathering the papers. We'll see. She called after me as I walked to my home office. You'll be back in 2 weeks when you realize how miserable you are. Small town life isn't what you think it is. I closed the door and sat down at my desk. The offer letter sat in front of me. $220 base. Overtime. Benefits that actually covered things. Respect from an employer who'd been actively recruiting me. I opened my laptop and typed out an email to the recruiter. Short and professional. I accepted the position and requested the earliest possible start date. The response came back in 10 minutes. They could have me starting in 3 weeks if I could make that work. Relocation bonus would be processed immediately. I hit reply and confirmed. My wife was still in the kitchen when I came back out. She looked up from her phone. So, I accepted the position. I start in 3 weeks. She set her phone down slowly. You're joking. Not even a little. And you expect me to just pack up our entire life and follow you to nowhere? I don't expect anything from you. You've made your choice. I've made mine. She stood up, voice rising. This is insane. You're throwing away our marriage over a job. I'm taking an opportunity that will set us up financially for the rest of our lives. You're the one who said you're not going. Because it's a terrible idea. For you, maybe. For me, it's the best offer I've ever received. She grabbed her wine glass. Fine, go. But when you come crawling back in a month because you're lonely and bored out of your mind, don't expect me to forget this. I understand, I said simply. And I did understand. I understood that she valued her social calendar more than our future. That she saw me as a paycheck that should stay conveniently located near her preferred zip code. That she'd never once asked what I wanted or needed. 3 weeks later, I loaded a truck with my clothes, my tools, and the few possessions that actually mattered to me. She watched from the doorway, arms crossed, convinced I'd be back before the weekend. I pulled out of the driveway without looking back. The apartment in the city, the one she loved so much, I left it in her name. She wanted to stay, she could figure out how to pay for it. I'd already opened a new checking account in Milford and had my paycheck routed there. For hours north, I pulled into a town that she'd never see. and that was perfectly fine with me. The first week in Milford, I stayed at an extended stay hotel while I looked for a place. The town wasn't what she described. Sure, it was smaller, but it had 3 grocery stores, a dozen restaurants, and people who nodded hello when you passed them on the street. The power plant was impressive. State-of-the-art facility, experienced team, management that actually listened when you spoke. My supervisor, Frank Garrison, was a 30-year veteran who'd seen every problem twice. "You settling in okay?" he asked on my 3rd day. "Getting there. Still looking for a place to rent." He pulled out his phone. "My brother-in-law has a house. 3-bedroom, garage, quiet street. He's been trying to rent it for 2 months. I can get you a good rate." By Friday, I'd signed a lease. $1,500 a month for a full house with a yard. Back in the city, we'd been paying $2,800 for a 2-bedroom apartment with paper-thin walls. I bought basic furniture from a local store. Nothing fancy. A bed, a couch, a kitchen table. Everything I needed, nothing I didn't. My wife started texting that weekend. "How's the boring town?" I replied hours later. "Fine. When are you coming back?" "I'm not." "Very funny. Seriously, how long is this going to last?" I didn't respond to that one. She tried calling Sunday evening. I let it go to voicemail. She left a message about how she'd talked to her friend Melissa, and Melissa thought I was being childish. I deleted it without finishing. Monday morning, I met my team. 8 engineers, all solid professionals who knew their systems inside out. They invited me to lunch at a diner downtown. The food was better than anything we paid $30 a plate for in the city. "Your wife joining you soon?" asked Cooper Hayes, one of the senior technicians. "No, she preferred to stay where we were." He nodded slowly. "That happened to my cousin. His wife wouldn't leave Portland. They split up 6 months later. Seems to be heading that direction," I said. "Probably for the best. Small town life isn't for everyone. But the folks who fit here, they really fit." That evening, I joined a gym 3 blocks from my house. $25 a month, never crowded, equipment that actually worked. I started going every morning before work. My wife's texts became more frequent. "We need to talk about bills. The rent is due. I can't afford this place on my own." I responded to that one. "The lease is in both our names. Figure it out." "Are you serious right now?" "Completely." She called. I answered this time. "You can't just abandon me with all the bills." "I'm not abandoning anything. You chose to stay. The apartment is yours. The responsibility is yours. I don't make enough to cover this. Then find a roommate, or move somewhere cheaper, or get a better paying job. Those are all options." "You're being cruel." "I'm being honest. You said you weren't moving. You said your life was there. So live your life there." She hung up on me. I went back to my evening. Made dinner, watched a hockey game, went to bed early. No drama, no arguments, no walking on eggshells around someone's mood. The second week, I got my first paycheck. After taxes and benefits, it was more than I used to make in a month. I set up automatic payments for my half of the city apartment lease, but nothing more. She'd been using our joint credit card freely for years. I canceled it. Her texts that Friday were furious. My card was declined at brunch. "You canceled our credit card? How am I supposed to pay for anything?" I replied once, "With your own money." She tried calling 6 times. I was at a work dinner with the team, celebrating the successful completion of a major maintenance project. I silenced my phone and enjoyed the evening. Frank raised his beer. To smooth operations and no surprises. We all drank to that. My phone buzzed continuously in my pocket. I ignored it completely. Sunday morning, I went for a run through the neighborhoods near my house. The air was cleaner than the city. Quieter. I passed families walking dogs, old guys working on their lawns, kids riding bikes. Nobody recognized me. Nobody cared who I was or what I did. It was anonymous in a way the city never was, but peaceful instead of isolating. My wife sent a long text that afternoon. Paragraphs about how I was destroying our marriage, how she couldn't believe I was doing this, how I needed to come home and talk things through like adults. I read it twice, then replied, "I am home." 3 weeks in, I'd established a routine. Work, gym, occasional dinners with colleagues, weekend projects around the house. I fixed the back deck, painted the garage, installed new light fixtures. My phone stayed mostly silent. She'd stopped texting daily. I assumed she was figuring things out, or complaining to her friends, or both. I didn't particularly care which. One of my coworkers, Blake Sutton, invited me to a barbecue at his place. His wife was friendly, their kids were polite, and the other couples there were genuine people who asked about your life because they actually wanted to know. Your family coming out to visit? Blake's wife asked. Doubtful, I said. My wife wasn't interested in small-town living. She nodded sympathetically. Some people need the city energy. Nothing wrong with that. But it's hard when partners want different things. It is, I agreed. What I didn't say was that it wasn't about city versus small town. It was about respect, partnership, and actually being seen as more than a funding source for someone else's lifestyle. But these were good people, and they didn't need to hear my marriage problems at their barbecue. I drove home that evening feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Content. Not ecstatic, not miserable, just steadily, quietly content with my life. My phone buzzed as I pulled into the driveway. A text from my wife. We need to talk. Call me. I put the phone in my pocket and went inside. Whatever she wanted to talk about could wait until I felt like dealing with it. Which, I was discovering, might be never. 6 weeks into the job, I pulled my first overtime shift. Scheduled maintenance on Turbine 3 ran longer than expected, and they needed the senior engineer on site. 16 hours total, time and a half after 8. The extra pay showed up on my next check. Almost $3,000 for one weekend. I mentioned it casually to Frank on Monday. Yeah, overtime here adds up fast, he said. Some guys pull an extra $40,000, $50,000 a year if they want it. You're senior level, so you'll get first call on the complex jobs. Those pay better. I did the math in my head. Base salary plus regular overtime could push me past $260, maybe $270. More than triple what I'd been making. That same week, my wife's friend Brooklyn commented on one of my co-workers' social media posts. Something about a team photo at a company event. She tagged my wife. I knew because my wife called 30 seconds later. Brooklyn says you were at some fancy company dinner. Company recognition event. They do it quarterly. She said it looked expensive. It was nice. Silence on her end, then. How much are they paying you? I told you when I got the offer. You said it was a good opportunity. You didn't say exactly how much. $220 base. Another pause. Longer this time. $220,000. Yes. That's... She trailed off. That's more than we were making together. It is. And you didn't think that was important to mention? I mentioned it was an exceptional opportunity. You said you didn't care about the salary. She made a frustrated sound. I didn't know it was that much. Would it have changed your answer? She didn't respond to that. That's what I thought, I said. Is there anything else? We should talk. About everything. We are talking. No, I mean in person. I could drive up this weekend. I'm working this weekend. Overtime on the cooling system maintenance. The weekend after? I'll let you know. I hung up before she could push further. The text started changing after that. Less angry, more strategic. I've been thinking about us. Maybe I was too quick to judge the small town thing. We should give Milford a chance together. I read them without responding. The pattern was obvious. She'd found out about the money, and suddenly the boring small town wasn't so boring anymore. Frank noticed me looking at my phone during break and grinned. Let me guess. Someone back home suddenly interested in how you're doing. Something like that. Tale as old as time. They don't care until they know what they're missing out on. Blake walked over with coffee. Your wife finally figure out what power plant engineers make. Seems that way. My ex did the same thing, Blake said. Told me I was wasting my potential working at the plant. Then her new boyfriend went broke, and suddenly she's calling about how we should try again. He sipped his coffee. I married someone else by then. How long did it take? I asked. For her to come around? About 2 months after I bought my first new truck in 10 years. She saw it in a grocery store parking lot and did the math. I pulled overtime again that weekend. 20-hour shift, system upgrade that couldn't wait. Sunday evening, I drove home exhausted but satisfied. The work was challenging, the team was competent, and the check would be substantial. My wife had sent 14 messages. Are you ignoring me? This is childish. I'm trying to fix things. You can't just shut me out. I talked to my mom. She thinks we should go to counseling. I responded to that one. Your mom can pay for it then. She called immediately. I let it ring. She called again. I answered on the third try. We need to talk about this like adults, she said. I'm listening. Not over the phone. I'm coming up this weekend. I didn't invite you. I don't need an invitation. We're still married. Barely. What's that supposed to mean? It means you made very clear that your life was more important than our marriage. I accepted that and moved on. Now you want to revisit that decision because the financial situation changed. I'm not interested in participating. You're being unfair. I'm being honest. There's a difference. I want to visit, to see where you're living, to talk face to face. I thought about it. Part of me wanted to say no outright, but another part wanted her to see exactly what she'd rejected. Fine. Next Saturday, you can stay one night. Guest bedroom. Guest bedroom. You made your choice. These are the consequences. She arrived Saturday afternoon in her Mercedes, the one I'd been making payments on for 3 years. She parked in front of my house and got out slowly, looking around like she'd landed on another planet. I watched from the porch. She walked up carrying an overnight bag. This is the house. This is it. It's nice. Bigger than I expected. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, garage, yard. $1,500 a month. Her eyes widened. That's half what we were paying. I'm aware. She followed me inside. I'd cleaned that morning, but I hadn't done anything special. The house looked like what it was, a comfortable place where someone lived simply. Where's all our furniture? She asked. You kept it. This is mine. She set her bag down. Can we talk? That's why you're here. She sat on the couch. I took the chair across from her. I miss you, she said. I didn't respond. I know I wasn't supportive about the move. I should have been. You were honest about what you wanted. I appreciated that. But I was wrong. I can see that now. This could work. What changed your mind? I asked. Was it the town, the house, or the salary? She hesitated. That's not fair. Answer the question. Fine. Yes, knowing the financial side helps. But that's not the only reason. It's the main reason, though. She looked away. You're doing well. Better than before. I want to be part of that. You wanted to be part of my life when it was convenient for you and your social schedule. Now it's convenient for your bank account. I'm not seeing much difference. People change. Priorities shift. They do, I agreed. Mine shifted when you told me your brunch plans were more important than our future. We sat in silence for a moment. Where do we go from here? She finally asked. I don't know, I said. But I do know that whatever happens next, it's going to be on my terms, not yours. Her expression hardened slightly. The nice act was slipping. Good. I preferred honest contempt to fake affection anyway. She stayed through Sunday. I showed her around town Saturday evening. The downtown area, the restaurants, the park by the river. She tried to find things to criticize, but came up empty. Milford wasn't glamorous, but it wasn't the wasteland she described either. It's quaint, she finally said. But where do you go for entertainment? I work. I go to the gym. I have dinner with colleagues. I don't need much else. That sounds lonely. It's peaceful. There's a difference. We ate dinner at a steakhouse downtown. She ordered the most expensive item on the menu and wine I knew she'd barely touch. Old habits. So you're planning to stay here permanently? She asked. That's the plan. And you expect me to just give up everything and move here? I don't expect anything from you. You've made your preferences clear multiple times. She set her fork down. What if I said I'd be willing to compromise? Spend weekends here, maintain the apartment in the city during the week. For what purpose? So we can make this work. Make what work exactly? A part-time marriage where you show up when it's convenient. It's better than this. I disagree. She picked up her wine glass. You've changed. I stopped accepting less than I deserve. If that's change, then yes. You're colder, harder. I'm clearer about what I want and what I won't tolerate, which is a partner, not a dependent with a social calendar. Her jaw tightened. That's not fair. It's accurate. We finished dinner in silence. I paid the bill. She didn't even reach for her purse, and we drove back to the house. Sunday morning, she came downstairs in yoga clothes she'd packed. Designer brand, expensive. She'd always been particular about her appearance. Is there a good yoga studio here? There's one on Main Street. I haven't been. Of course not. She poured coffee. Do you even miss our old life? Some parts. Not many. What do you miss? I thought about it honestly. The restaurants were better. That's about it. She stared at me. That's it. That's all you miss. What else is there? The expensive apartment? The bills? Spending every weekend hearing about drama with your friends? Which part should I miss? Us. Our relationship. We didn't have much of a relationship. We had a living arrangement where I paid for things and you consumed them. That is incredibly unfair. Then tell me I'm wrong. Tell me about the last time you asked about my day, about my work, about what I wanted or needed. She opened her mouth, then closed it. That's what I thought. She left around noon. Before she got in her car, she turned back. I want to make this work. Despite everything you think I do. Then prove it. But not with words. With actions. What kind of actions? Figure that out yourself. I'm done providing instructions for how to care about me. She drove off without another word. The house felt lighter after she left. I spent the afternoon working on the garage, organizing tools, installing better lighting. Simple, satisfying work. My phone buzzed around 6. A text from her. Thank you for letting me visit. I have a lot to think about. I didn't respond. Monday at work, Frank asked how the weekend went. She visited, stayed one night, and she wants to make things work now that she knows the financial situation. Shocking, he said dryly. What are you going to do? Nothing. The ball's in her court. You're not going to try to save the marriage? I'm not going to beg someone to value me. If she figures it out on her own, we can talk. If she doesn't, I'm fine either way. Blake overheard and walked over. Cold-blooded. I respect it. Not cold-blooded. Just done being treated like an ATM with feelings. Fair enough, Blake said. My wife and I are having people over Saturday. Barbecue, nothing fancy. You should come. I'll be there. That week, my wife texted every day. Updates about her life, questions about mine, attempts at conversation. I responded to maybe 1 in 4 messages. Enough to not be cruel, but not enough to encourage her. Thursday evening, she called. You're being distant. I'm being consistent. You know where I stand. I'm trying here. Are you? Or are you trying to secure your financial future? Why do you keep saying that? Because 6 weeks ago, you couldn't be bothered to respond to my texts. Now you're calling every other day. The only thing that changed was you finding out about the money. People can realize they made mistakes. They can. But forgive me for being skeptical when the realization coincides perfectly with discovering a 6-figure salary. She was quiet for a moment. What do you want from me? I want you to be honest. With yourself and with me. Are you interested in me or in what I can provide? That's not a fair question. It's a very fair question. And the fact that you won't answer it tells me everything I need to know. I need time. Take all the time you want. I'm not going anywhere. Friday afternoon, I got pulled into an emergency meeting. Problem with the distribution system, needed senior engineering sign-off. I worked until midnight, coordinated with the team, got everything handled. Saturday morning, I woke up to 17 texts from my wife. She'd seen on social media that I'd been at the plant late. One of my co-workers had posted a photo of the team during the crisis. My wife wanted to know why I hadn't told her, why I wasn't keeping her informed, why I seemed to be excluding her from my life. I responded once, because you're not part of this life. You made that choice. She called. I declined it. She called again. I turned off my phone and went to Blake's barbecue. The afternoon was exactly what I needed. Good people, good food, genuine conversations. Blake's wife asked if I was seeing anyone. Still technically married, I said. Technically doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence, she observed. It is. Well, when that changes, there's a teacher at my school. Recently divorced, smart, loves hiking. I think you two would get along. I'll keep that in mind. I drove home that evening feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Optimistic. Not about my marriage, that was clearly dying, but about what came after. My phone had 43 messages when I turned it back on. I deleted them without reading. Whatever she wanted to say, she'd had months to say it when it mattered. Now it was just noise. 2 months in, my wife showed up unannounced on a Tuesday evening. I came home from work to find her car in the driveway. She was sitting on the porch steps. We need to talk, she said. You drove 4 hours without calling first. You weren't answering my calls. That should have told you something. I unlocked the door and went inside. She followed. I've been thinking about everything, she started. About us, about the future. I think I can make the move work. We can sell the apartment. I can find something here. Stop. She blinked. What? Just stop. You're not moving here. But I'm willing to now. 2 months ago, you said this town was boring and beneath you. You said you had a life that mattered. Now you want to move here because you did the math on my paycheck. Do you hear yourself? People change their minds. No, people reveal their priorities. Your priority is money. Always has been. Her face flushed. That's not true. Then explain why you suddenly care. Explain why you ignored me for 6 weeks until you found out about the salary. Explain why every conversation now revolves around making things work. She couldn't. That's what I thought, I said. I'm filing for divorce. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious about anything. Over what? Over me not wanting to move immediately. Over you not seeing me as a person, just as a resource. She stood there, mouth open, searching for words. She found none that worked. You can stay tonight if you need to. Guest room. Tomorrow you leave. This is insane. This is overdue. She left that night instead. Crying, angry, throwing accusations. I stood in the doorway and watched her go. Wednesday morning, I called a lawyer in the city. By Friday, divorce papers were filed. No drama, no drawn-out fights. Just clean legal separation. My wife tried everything. Tears, anger, bargaining. None of it mattered. I'd spent years being convenient. Now I was choosing to be valued. And she never figured out the difference. The divorce took 3 months. Clean, straightforward. She kept the apartment in the city, along with the mortgage payments. I kept everything in Milford, and my salary stayed mine. She tried one last push before the final hearing. Showed up at my door with a letter she'd written. 7 pages about mistakes and second chances and how we could start over. I read the first paragraph and handed it back. The answer is no. You didn't even read it all. I don't need to. You spent our entire marriage putting yourself first. Now you want me to put you first again. I'm done with that arrangement. I loved you. No, you love what I provided. There's a difference. She left without the dramatics this time. Just tired acceptance. The divorce finalized on a Thursday. I signed the papers during my lunch break, then went back to work on a transformer upgrade. Frank clapped me on the shoulder. How do you feel? Lighter. Good. That's how you should feel. 6 months after the divorce, I bought the house I'd been renting. The owner gave me a fair price, and the mortgage was less than my old rent. I ran into Blake's wife at the grocery store. She mentioned that teacher again. I asked for her number. We had coffee the following Saturday. Her name was Claire Brennan. She taught 5th grade, had a dog named Scout, and laughed at my sarcasm instead of rolling her eyes at it. We went hiking the next weekend, then dinner. Then she started staying over on weekends. A year after I'd moved to Milford, I got promoted to lead engineer. Another $40,000 in salary, company truck, full autonomy over major projects. I called my ex-wife once, not to gloat, just to close the final account we'd shared. How are you? She asked, voice careful. Good. You? Managing. I moved to a smaller place. Got a roommate. That's practical. Silence, then. Do you ever think about what could have been different? Sometimes. Then I remember that you had every chance to choose differently. You didn't. I know. Take care of yourself, I said, and hung up. I never called again. 2 years after the move, Claire and I got engaged. Simple proposal, no games, just 2 people who'd figured out what mattered. The wedding was small. My team from the plant, Claire's teacher friends, Frank gave a speech about second chances. I stood there in my suit, looking at a woman who chose me for me, and realized something. My ex-wife had been right about one thing. Moving to Milford had changed everything, just not in any way she'd expected.